In this episode, friends, before we move on to the ambience section, look over here on the right side where it says ambience. The ambience menu is the part where we enhance our scene with lighting for effects, the position of the sun, shadows, and other factors. Friends, now, before moving on to this, if you want to set an effective camera angle in camera effects, you need to constantly explore the scene with some testing and trials. Friends, the media section we have shown here, whether it's the image or animation part, these are areas that require some practice. For practice, you need to spend a lot of time on the scene, friends. You can continue by spending a lot of time on the topics I have shown. Now, when we move on to the ambience section, there are some important parameters in the ambience section. Look, here we have a dynamic sky section and an HDR section, friends. I had shown the HDR section. The HDR section is used to fundamentally obtain reflections in materials where there is a lot of water and glass using maps, meaning image, maps. Dynamic sky also has its own parameters. So now, in this section, we will see the dynamic sky. While seeing the dynamic sky, friends, look here. It says the time of day. Right now it's 10:30. Look, what happens? When I turn this, the sun is setting downwards, friends. What happens when it sets? Look, where is the sun? Let's take a look at the sun. Where is our sun? Look, the sun is over there. Friends, do you see it? Look, time of day. Look, it's going upwards. It's going downwards. And as you can see, it's sunset. This also determines the position of the sun. So it determines why the sun will come. Now someone wrote something. Open here, friends. Let's delete it if you want. Let's delete this. Look, there's one left hanging in the air. Let me look from above. Anyway, that one can't be deleted for now. Let it stay like that for now. Now, normally, when you catch an angle, as we showed in our previous lesson, when you catch an angle, you can adjust your angle according to where you want the shadow to fall. Look, shadows falling on the building like this also provide an effective image, friends. Look at the hostel as you can see like this. For example, the sun is coming directly from behind me. Or, well, the current time of day is 1843. So I can change the time of day to a different hour, like this. These are important topics. These are really important things to create the effect, and you need to constantly play with them, friends. You can also enter our current location from the location section here. For example, let's say Ankara. Let's say the point where I am located, for instance. Ankara, look, it says Ankara, Turkey. Currently, if this building is in Ankara, if we consider it to be in Ankara, it adjusts the sunrise and sunset, or the rotation according to the current time zone in Ankara, friends. This is the situation. In this section, our current temperature value is 5,600. Don't worry too much about this temperature value, friends. These are actually detailed render features. For example, when you turn it upwards, blue becomes dominant. When you move it downwards, red becomes dominant. That is a yellowish red, to create different ambience elements like the surface of Mars or the moon. Let's say you made a desert. To increase the intensity of the sun in the desert, you can keep it like this a bit more. So like 3,600. But if you ask what the main value is, the main value is between 5,500 and 6,500, which will suffice for you, friends. It's a nice value. Therefore, there's no need to play around with these too much. When you see these arrows, you'll find different features when you click under them. This is the sky section, friends. This is the turbidity part. Actually, how should I say? It's a part that resembles large and dusty particles forming on the screen and in the sky. Below, you adjust its density, friends. Look, as these dust particles increase, it creates an atmosphere that resembles air, pollution, so to speak. It simulates that, friends. It even simulates that. Look, as you can see, it's such a situation. That's why there's a difference when you adjust these things just right. It's beneficial. This cloud section is the cloud part, friends. Look, there aren't usually many clouds in the sky, but as soon as you increase this part, a two-dimensional cloud forms. Look, it says 2D here. There's also a volumetric cloud section. Volumetric means three-dimensional. It means a cloud with volumetric depth. When I click on the volumetric section, look, the ambiance has also changed. So, because it's cloudy, look, since it's in cloudy weather, the light started to fall less and the light changed. Look, when I open this and come to the custom section here, I can select different types of clouds from here. See, did you notice? I can create dynamic interactions. Cloudy weather, a bit more semi-clear, cloudy weather, clearer weather. For example, slightly cloudy weather. This could be slightly cloudy weather. When I add it here, look, it has been added here. For this work, I added a slightly semi-cloudy weather here, friends. You can also adjust the cloud density from here. Look, as you can see. When you press from the bottom again, you can change their size, reduce or enlarge them, and change their positions. As you can see, there are many features in this process. So there are many dynamic features here. You can play around with these, friends. Look, a bit longer, thinner. Let me say elongated. This is the situation. You can also change its color here. Don't make too many changes regarding colors. There can be a slight color change from white to gray, friends. Now here is the weather section. The weather section was newly introduced in 2025. There are areas we can adjust related to rain, friends. For example, regarding rain, when you activate rain here, the rain effect will kick in. Look, it's raining right now, as you can see. And you can see this on the ground as well. You can see the effect of rain with mud and puddles and how the drops fall in this way, friends. We will already create a part of a vehicle standing on the road related to this. In other words, we will create its scene. There, you will see a nice effect on the asphalt, friends. Currently, since it is on the soil, our effect is like this. But we will be able to create a nicer effect on the vehicle and asphalt. For this rainy part, look, there is a snowman at the bottom. When you pull towards the snow, your scene will now form towards a snowy surface, friends. Look, as you can see, this is why it's called ambience. Your ambience changes instantly, friends. You can change your ambience instantly. What did we say? Come to the media section and look at the bottom part. When I press the plus sign for the summer ambience, it instantly switches to the winter ambience, friends. You can create image views from here in very different ways and create rainy, snowy, windy weather in different forms. Look, there's also a windy section at the bottom, but see, I only have this for the wind. Look, I mean, it's not a bad view actually at the moment. Look, this is a bit more like that. A section that displays the condition of the trees, friends. Look now, this is my tree, this tree. Some trees can change dynamically instantly. Look, the tree is leafy right now in its normal autumn foliage. I'm pulling a bit more. It dried up. Do you see it, friends? It dried up right in the middle. Trees with this feature can also change like this. Look, as you can see, I mean, think of it as if it has shed its leaves because it's winter now. When I come down and maintain it like this, a process. This might be the method applied to us for now. Slightly like branches without leaves, we're talking about this for winter. It might be a tree shape with slightly more dried leaves fallen. Friends, in this way, we achieve the necessary effect. Look, as you can see, a slightly cold effect. We can create such an image. We did this by pressing the update button here. There was the render part, if you remember. Render Kindle Ersialk Wafi. Yes, friends, of course, I will show it for now, but I will do a small test regarding this. Look, I'm pressing the render button. Friends, as you can see, it renders itself the light. One AnnoLink does the thing and look like this. When the rendering is finished, it will be complete. As you can see, it has been completed. We have created an image like a portrait. As you can see, friends, it's really a beautiful image. You can create images like this. You can create even more and more beautiful images than this. This is a topic that, as we always say, requires effort in the render engine, something that requires you to work on it, friends. Now, in our final part, we have the fog section. I won't be covering the wind section. The wind section is related to wind, friends. The wind section affects the animation part. Look, here there's a slight shimmer, a gentle ripple on the grass. Look, let me increase it. Did you see this? It has started to increase significantly. You can adjust the wind direction from where you want it to blow. Twinmotion is a very dynamic, very effective program. Friends, I highly recommend using it. It's a great program. I will go down like this. Look, there's a fog section at the bottom. Fog is one of my favorite effects, friends. For example, let me have an image like this. Look at the fog section. The density part means intensity, friends. The density part, when you increase the density, look, the fog part increases gradually. Do you see? This is the height of the fog, friends. So look. How much area will it cover? Do you see when it covers an area like this? Let's press the render button and see how it looks in the fog. Look, it's rendering. When I add fog, that is, when I increase the effects, friends, you will see that the intensity increases a bit more. My computer got a bit more strained. It slowed down a bit more because the more effects you add, the more the computer slows down. Look, in this way, we have obtained a foggy, misty image, friends. Currently, when you click on these dots in the render section, the render will close again. Friends, to restore the image to its original state, you come to the top section. When you come up, look here. For the seasonal HDRI drop box, for all Sora text Ambience reminders, here, I brought the snowman part here. As you can see, by opening this again, this part where these three come indicates the summer part, friends. From the detailed section, you can also make various adjustments related to these. You have the chance to adjust the effects as well. These are the settings related to the rain. This is the part referred to as paddle size. It's about the size and smallness of the raindrop, friends. There are such detailed settings. We will prepare an extra scene for them. We will see it there. For now, we have seen the dynamic sky part in the ambiance section. In the other part, we will see the HD reincarnation from the ambience section. You will see the difference between the two, friends, because the difference between the two is distinct. In the dynamic sky part, it's the section where we play a bit more with the sun, but in the HDR part, it will be the section where we play more with the photo. That is, based on the photo image. The HDR part is linked to the section on the left, and when we drag and drop the files here, the ambiance will change to cloudy weather, clear weather, sunny weather, etc., friends, and we will create a different image.